Through when he was in when he wasn't in Necker Island now, where he spends most.
Again, he's another gentleman who's a bit disinhibited, so I wouldn't be surprised if he has it as well.
Yeah, but he used to have 20-minute power naps. So you learn to work around those things, and you suit it to your personality. But the thing is, you start forming a pattern, you start creating those little habits around that, or now all destructive habits you actually need to change, and you need to change those little things one step at a time. Because if you change too many things at once, you'll just go back to your default mechanism where all the bad habits. Because the reason is there's too much of a cognitive change to what you're doing to be able to sustain it, which is why you have to do one little thing at a time. So because now we're in November, next month everyone's going to start thinking about doing the New Year's resolutions, for example, for the new year, and I'm going to give up smoking, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go on a diet, I'm going to look for a new job, and they've got about a list of about 100 things that they actually want to change. Well, okay, 100's an exaggeration. And the thing is, by February, 90% of them will probably have gone back to where they were before Christmas, and they've seen themselves as a failure, and then they'll wait for the next year to do the whole thing all over again. And the problem is, they set all these goals, and what happens is that only takes one of them to break, and then everything collapses because you're juggling too many things. There's too much of a cognitive change to be able to handle that. And if you're going to do this, you set up a list of priorities. My wife has these things she calls them P1s, which is these are my priority ones right now. And I think that's one of the companies she worked for where she's learned that. But the thing is, sort out what's your priority. Actually, is it, let's say if it's giving up smoking, is it giving up smoking first, or is it going to the gym first? And then once you've actually got into the pattern of that, then you go into do something else.
You're so right. It is small changes, and Jordan Peterson emphasised that point. He says,
I do listen to his stuff. I never come across that actually.
He says make small changes, and indeed there was a very interesting lecture given by a hyper successful businessman, and he clearly had ADHD, and he just couldn't study at school. And what he decided to do is to say, right, I can't study for 2 hours, I can't study for an hour, I'll study for 15 minutes, and then I'll take a break and do something I enjoy. Then I'll go and study again, and it can be whatever I want to study. And he did that, and he graduated, what is it, cum laude, something ridiculously fantastic like that. And then he said it's all about making small changes to your routine.
Yeah, and tweaking them so they can actually work with you.
Self-awareness, though, because you don't know what small change to make unless you're self-aware.
I remember many years ago, and because I was struggling to learn them, and that's probably my 20s when I first started discovering mind maps. And they really work for me.
It's organisational, and therefore people with ADHD learn.
You jump in there, Theo. Go on.
I'll lead you straight back to it. But
okay.
It's important because people with ADHD have a natural tendency to be disorganised, and those who succeed learn how to organise. So they'll make lists. They'll find some structure that they try and force themselves to do. And people who I've treated for ADHD with medication, who then find it a lot easier to concentrate and get organised. Some of them can do without the medication because they now have developed the habit of organisation and they know they can do it. So they're more likely to force themselves to. So I like your idea of mind maps. Do you want to tell us about them?
Well, I do mind. Look, the best thing to do is Google mind map. So, you have your centre of a page, you have your title of what you're going to do, and then you have little stems coming off those, basically. I don't think you should have probably more than 5 on a page or 6 on a page. But I learned how to use mind maps. But the thing is, was my point I wanted to talk about was the learning thing. So if you sit down and say, I'm going to study solidly for an hour, and the thing is, your brain can probably only handle about 20 minutes of that 1 hour. So you're wasting probably about 40 minutes. Because the thing is, you're only peaking at about 20 minutes. Whereas actually, if you break that hour down to 3 20-minute sessions, you are going to probably going to peak for a longer period of time over that hour. Do you understand? Just by having those 3 sessions. So and I think they've done studies on this, and this is what I was shown. I said early in my 20s, and that's what I used to go to. When I did my university, I went to university doing the evening classes, and I was working during the day, and it was really, I found school challenging because I've got dyslexia as well, and
Commonly linked to ADHD.
Probably linked to it. Yeah, probably is. I struggled.
Does Megan have dyslexia as well?
Sorry, she's dyslexic as well. Yeah.
Yep.
So the thing is, actually, in some ways, she couldn't wait to leave school, because the thing is, school is very much suited for that person who's very audio. He's very much an audio learner. He's quite happy to receive information like that, and not everyone can. Some people need to get their hands dirty, in effect, and that's why my daughter's pretty good at that. And once she starts talking about it, touching it, and she's probably quite a kinesthetic person in that respect as a learner. So I understand. Although she did really well at school, I understand her dilemma, because I actually went through it as well. But I had to learn it, and then and look. And sometimes you also need to dig deep and suck it up, because the thing is, there was people in my university class who were writing countless notes, and I'm thinking, God, I can't even keep up with this. Yet I met someone the other week who is that type of learner. Yet put her in a work environment, and she's constantly referring to pages and pages and pages of notes, and there's a lack of practical ability, because all her total reliance was on the theory of learning this information, and because she's writing a constant, loads and loads of notes, she's constantly having to refer to them and constantly making mistakes. Because as soon as you start writing it down, you almost feel as though you don't have to remember it, because you've put it somewhere. So when you see her operate, and you ask her, "Can you do this?" Even though she's been shown about 3 or 4 times, probably more, she's still going back to her notes to refer to that.
It's because I think it's also a concentration problem, because if you're concentrating whilst you're writing, you're much more likely to remember it. And the fact that she can't either means, as you say, that she's specifically telling herself, I don't have to remember it because I'm writing it down, or she may also have a concentration problem.
She may do, but practically she's very poor. But the thing is, I bet she was one of those people who probably did really well at school. Probably did really well at university, because that was her learning style. But her practical style was very different. It's why you get the people like the Richard Bransons of this world, who were really poor at school. Yet he's gone on to create. He's got 400 odd companies now under the Virgin brand. And look at someone like Alan Sugar, who he went out there, he started hustling from such a young age, and that's how he actually learns. Whereas all these theorists out there, who haven't got any practical experience, guess what? They go and become professors. So when people talk about economics and they spend their whole lives in a classroom, they've got no concept of what's going on in the outside world. And in some ways, I feel our politicians are like that as well. And I am a Tory, by the way, but just so but the thing is, what worries me about the Tories sometimes is because some of them have come from a very entitled upbringing. They don't actually have that same level of understanding of what's going on in the marketplace, in effect. I mean, if you look at someone like Margaret Thatcher, for example, one thing she always did, because I think she was a grocer's daughter, I think her father was a grocer, she always knew the price of milk, she also knew the price of bread. And if you go to those Mr. Whippy bands out there, she's responsible for inventing Mr. Whippy ice cream.
Talk about
because she was, because I think because she studied chemistry at Oxford, didn't she?
Talking about politicians, I remember you said it was worth watching Jordan Peterson on Panorama.
No, Question Time. He was
on Question Time. You're right, and I did, and one thing he said about Brexit, he said, well, it's all Cameron's fault, isn't it? Because instead of doing any proper reading, he simply put it to a vote for the people. And he said, how can you put something like that, which is so complicated, to a vote when quite frankly the experts don't even know?
Yeah, well, this is what he was doing.
And did you notice when he gave his resignation speech, he walked away humming? He just didn't care.
No. Well, the thing is, he's already quite wealthy. I think his wife is even more wealthy than he is, or her family is. In fact, the coming out of Brexit actually impacted her father because he got a lot of subsidies from Europe because I think he was into farming or something. So he got a lot of benefit from being in Europe. So I don't think maybe he doesn't like his father-in-law. But no, but I think what David Cameron did is, I mean, he was quite an aggressive. When he went for the general election, he was actually quite aggressive in terms of he wanted him more than Ed Miliband, to be honest. I mean, that's why he was a stronger character and that's why he won. However, hold on. But the thing is, I think he went to Brussels because the thing is, there was an immigration problem that we couldn't really handle. And the people were, he needed to be seen to be doing something. He went in there and basically he went in with a poker hand that wasn't, where he didn't actually have the best hand in the world and called their bluff. All right, and the thing is, they did call his bluff. And then when you put the cards out on the table, and the thing is, his poker hand was actually calling a referendum and threatening them with a referendum, and they didn't play ball, thinking that we wouldn't do it. And this is why we are here.
I know.
Look, life is a risk. He took a risk, and I'm not saying that the risk hasn't paid. The risk hasn't paid off.
You don't make yourself that vulnerable. It's unforgivable. And the fact is, we elect people to lead, and to lead us properly.
Yeah, but the thing is, you see, he wanted to call their bluff because he thought we were in a much stronger position, or he wanted to give the impression that we're in a stronger position than they were. Look, as I said, it was a bluff. It was a poker hand that didn't go in his favour. He took a risk. It didn't work. But we are going to suffer the consequences. We'll probably suffer the consequences. We may not. We may come out of this thriving. We don't know. Because this whole Europe experiment hasn't really worked, is it?
Yeah. But the catastrophic lack of leadership has led to... There was an article, again, recently talking about the fact that teenagers, young people, are the most depressed they've ever been. Think about that for a second.
Well, do you know what? They also need to get off their Xboxes and video games.
But why
and Netflix
are they on them?
Like
you see, this is the point. Why are they on them?
Because technology in some ways is brought out. Do you know what? I put a post up the other day. I shared a video on Facebook.
But you can't get...
Can I finish a sentence here, please? A second. All right.
You have had a long monologue.
Huh?
You have just had a long monologue.
Well, you had the first half anyway. But I just need to finish what I'm saying. So I saw a video I shared a video up on Facebook that I saw, and it was these drive-in supermarkets. So you don't even have to leave the car to go and pick your bread up or pick your milk up, and that is the future that is actually coming our way. And you wonder why obesity is becoming a problem, and you wonder where people aren't exercising. It's really, just because you can do things like that doesn't mean you should.
There's an interesting...
Anyway,
if
you can have the rest of the 1 minute and 42 seconds.
If you compare Norway to America and England, one of the key things that distinguishes their success is free education. And Norway, the Scandinavian countries are much happier than we are in the rest of Europe.
Well, they used to be. Scandinavia was supposed to be the utopia, but it's not so much anymore.
Not so much, but they're still more functional and a better place. And one of those is free education. So young people are being saddled with debt, and there's no leadership. And indeed, a successful businessman just visiting from Greece now, he said to me, I went to the bank, and I was shocked at how many people there were, and I couldn't even understand their accents. And the point he was making was that you come to the UK, you don't even know you're in the UK. And the point on that is that there's no overarching identity here. And this is one of the big problems. And as we said last week, identity without education, education without identity is chaos and anarchy and violence.
Okay. All right. We'll end that on that note, actually, and we'll probably bring it up in next week's podcast. So, guys, we've run out of time. Thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.